The first time Evan mentioned Claire, Layla barely noticed. He had been telling her about a difficult meeting at work when he laughed and said Claire was the only person in the office who could calm him down after dealing with unreasonable clients. Layla smiled because she was glad he had someone competent on his team. She had been dating Evan for just over 2 months, and she was still learning the names that populated his days: the manager who changed deadlines without warning, the receptionist who always brought homemade cookies, the older accountant who refused to use the company messaging system, and Claire, the project coordinator who apparently understood Evan better than anyone else did. The second time he mentioned her, Layla noticed only because of the comparison. Claire never became overwhelmed when plans changed, Evan told her after Layla expressed disappointment that he had canceled their Saturday trip with less than an hour's notice. Claire was easygoing like that. She understood how demanding his job could be. Layla had looked at him carefully. She had not yelled. She had not accused him of neglecting her. She had only said that she wished he had called sooner because she had rearranged her weekend and already paid for the hotel. Evan leaned back and studied her, as if her disappointment revealed something troubling about her character. "You get jealous every time I mention her." The accusation startled Layla because jealousy had not been what she was feeling. But the words stayed. By the time Claire's name appeared in nearly every disagreement between them, Layla had begun asking herself whether Evan was right. Perhaps she really was jealous. Perhaps she really was insecure. Perhaps the problem had been inside her all along. 3 months earlier, Layla Monroe had believed she was entering the healthiest relationship she had known. She had met Evan Brooks at the retirement celebration of one of her former professors. Layla worked as an instructional designer for a community college, developing online courses for adult learners returning to school. Evan managed commercial renovation projects and had a way of making every person he spoke to feel temporarily fascinating. He remembered names, asked thoughtful questions, and seemed genuinely interested when Layla described why she had left corporate training to work with students who believed they had missed their chance to build a different life. He called her the following afternoon. Their first dates unfolded easily. Evan chose restaurants after asking what she liked. He sent messages before important presentations. When Layla told him that she moved slowly in relationships because she valued stability, he said he admired a woman who knew herself. "You don't play games," he told her. "That's rare." In the beginning, Evan made Layla feel seen. He praised her calmness, her independence, and the way she communicated without drama. When she disagreed with him, he said he appreciated her honesty. When she needed time alone, he told her it made him respect her more. By their 4th month together, the praise had begun changing shape. He still complimented Layla, but increasingly, the compliments arrived beside comparisons. Layla was thoughtful, but Claire was spontaneous. Layla was intelligent, but Claire knew how to laugh at herself. Layla dressed beautifully, but Claire could make jeans and a company polo look effortless. Layla planned wonderful meals, but Claire made the best homemade lasagna Evan had ever tasted. At first, the comments seemed careless rather than cruel. Evan spoke about Claire as if she were part coworker, part entertaining office character. She was recently divorced, raising a 7-year-old daughter, and apparently had a story for every situation. According to Evan, Claire once talked a contractor out of abandoning a project by sitting on an overturned paint bucket and sharing her lunch with him. She had challenged their regional director in a meeting. She had stayed late to help Evan correct a budgeting error. She had remembered his birthday when everyone else forgot. Layla did not resent Claire. She did not know Claire. What unsettled her was how Evan watched her whenever he said the woman's name. It was subtle, a pause, a slight lift of his eyebrow, a glance held half a second longer than necessary, as though he were waiting to see what the name would produce. The first serious disagreement happened on a Thursday evening. Layla had prepared dinner because Evan told her he would arrive at 7. At 7:30, he texted that he was still at work. At 8:15, he said the team had gone out for drinks after completing a difficult phase of a project. He arrived at Layla's apartment after 10, smelling faintly of beer and restaurant smoke. Layla did not accuse him of anything. She asked why he had not told her the plans had changed. "I did tell you. You texted after you were already late. I was working. And then you went out. With my team, Layla, not to a nightclub." "I didn't say you went to a nightclub. I'm saying I waited because we had plans." Evan stared at her for several seconds before shaking his head. "Claire warned me this might happen." Layla felt something inside her go still. What did Claire warn you about? She said sometimes people who seem independent at first become demanding once they get comfortable. Layla looked at the dinner she had covered and placed in the refrigerator. You discussed me with her? We talk. She's my friend. And you told her I was demanding? I told her you get upset when work interferes with our plans. She said I should pay attention to that. Layla's disappointment changed into something harder to name. It was not simply that Evan had discussed their relationship with a coworker. It was that he had brought Claire's judgment into the room as if it carried authority over Layla's experience. I asked you to call when plans change, Layla said. That isn't demanding. There it is. What? That edge in your voice whenever Claire comes up. Layla stared at him. This conversation wasn't about Claire until you brought her into it. Evan laughed once, without humor. You don't hear yourself. That night, Layla apologized for sounding defensive. Evan accepted the apology without offering one of his own. Dear hearts, sometimes a harmful pattern does not announce itself through shouting or threats. Sometimes it arrives through confusion, through conversations that leave a woman defending herself against an accusation she never earned. If this story is helping you recognize something difficult to name, subscribe to Velvet Justice Chronicles and become part of the Velvet Circle, where women's experiences are believed. After that evening, Claire seemed to become more present in the relationship without ever physically entering it. When Layla suggested that she and Evan plan a weekend away, he said Claire believed couples who scheduled romance were trying too hard. When Layla wore a fitted green dress to a gallery opening, Evan told her she looked beautiful, and then added that Claire would never have the confidence to wear something so elegant because she was more of a natural beauty. When Layla declined an invitation to join Evan's coworkers at a crowded sports bar after a long work week, he smiled strangely and said, Claire said you probably wouldn't come. The comments were small enough to sound harmless when repeated individually. Together, they formed an atmosphere. Layla began feeling as though Claire were standing beside Evan whenever he looked at her, silently grading her reactions. She tried to address it directly. I don't like being compared to her. Evan looked genuinely surprised. I'm not comparing you. You do it often. Give me an example. Layla gave him 3. He challenged the wording of the first, claimed not to remember the second, and explained that the third had been a compliment. You keep a list of everything I say about Claire? No, it sounds like you do. I'm explaining the pattern you asked me to explain. The pattern, he smiled faintly. You make everything sound clinical. Layla felt herself becoming frustrated. You mention her during disagreements. You tell me what she thinks about our relationship. You compare how we dress, how we respond to things, even how we cook. I talk about people in my life. You don't talk about anyone else this way. So I'm supposed to stop mentioning a coworker because you feel threatened? I didn't say I felt threatened. You don't have to. The conversation ended with Evan reassuring Layla that Claire was not his type. Layla had never asked whether she was. That distinction mattered, but she could not yet explain why. In the weeks that followed, Layla tried to become less reactive. She told herself she was mature enough to tolerate a close friendship between her boyfriend and another woman. She reminded herself that Evan came home to her, called her every evening, and introduced her as his girlfriend. She began policing her own expressions whenever Claire's name appeared. She did not ask why Claire was texting at 11:30 at night. She did not comment when Evan stepped into the hallway to answer a call from her during Sunday brunch. She said nothing when she noticed that he had taken Claire to a supplier meeting Layla had once offered to attend because she wanted to understand his work. Every silence felt like evidence of maturity. Evan rewarded those silences. For several days after Layla stopped questioning him, he became the man she had met again. He sent flowers to her office. He planned a quiet dinner. He told her he had never felt so peaceful with anyone. Then, as they walked back to his car after dinner, he said, Claire thinks I've been distracted lately. Layla kept her face neutral. Does she? She notices everything. I see. She said relationships can do that to people. There it was again, the small insertion, the invisible wedge. Layla looked through the windshield as Evan drove. She understood that he wanted a reaction. What she did not yet understand was why. Layla finally met Claire at Evan's company's summer picnic. Claire was not what Layla expected, although she realized she had never consciously formed an image of her. She was a white woman in her late 30s with shoulder-length auburn hair, kind eyes, and a nervous habit of twisting her wedding ring, even though Evan had said she was divorced. She greeted Layla warmly. "I've heard so much about you." Layla smiled. "I've heard a lot about you too." For one instant, something uncomfortable crossed Claire's face. Evan placed an arm around Layla's waist. "I tell Claire you're the organized one. She's the office tornado." Claire's smile tightened. "You usually call me the person who keeps you organized." Evan laughed. "That too." Throughout the afternoon, Layla observed them carefully. Claire did not flirt with Evan. She did not touch him unnecessarily or try to draw him away. In fact, she seemed almost overly cautious around Layla, as though she knew she had entered a situation whose rules had never been clearly explained. Later, while Evan joined several colleagues near the grill, Claire and Layla stood alone beside the drinks table. "Evan says you don't like these work events," Claire said. Layla turned toward her. "He said that?" Claire looked embarrassed. "Maybe I misunderstood." "No, I just didn't come to the last one because I had been working all week. He said crowds make you uncomfortable." "They don't." Claire nodded slowly. A quiet understanding passed between them. Not trust yet, but recognition that the version of Layla presented at work might not resemble the woman standing in front of her. "What has he told you about me?" Layla asked. Claire looked toward Evan. "Mostly that you're very independent." The pause after the answer was too long. "And?" Claire lowered her voice. "He sometimes asks whether I think certain things are normal in relationships, wanting to know where he is, being upset when he has to change plans, not liking that we talk outside work." Layla felt heat rise into her face, but she kept her voice calm. "Has he told you that I check where he is?" "He said you question him. When he misses plans without calling." Claire's expression changed. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said anything." "You didn't do anything wrong." The sentence came naturally and Layla realized she meant it. Across the lawn, Evan was watching them. When their eyes met, his smile disappeared. That evening, he accused Layla of interrogating Claire. "I asked her what you had told her about me. You put her in an uncomfortable position. You put her in that position when you made her a participant in our relationship. She is not a participant. Then stop asking her to judge me." Evan's expression hardened. "So this is who you really are." Layla felt the familiar pull to defend herself. "Who am I? Territorial, suspicious, jealous." "I spoke to her for less than 5 minutes. You waited until I walked away." "Because the conversation happened naturally. You embarrassed me in front of someone I work with." "What exactly did I say that embarrassed you?" "It isn't always about the words, Layla. It's your energy." The accusation had no shape, which made it impossible to answer. Her energy, her tone, her expression, the things Evan claimed to perceive but could never define. Layla left his apartment that night without apologizing. He did not call the next morning. By evening, her certainty had begun dissolving. She replayed the conversation at the picnic, wondering whether she had made Claire uncomfortable. She examined her questions, her facial expressions, and the tone she had used. When Evan finally contacted her 2 days later, his voice was gentle. "I don't want us fighting over another woman." Layla closed her eyes. Neither did she. That was how the conversation became about her jealousy again. By the 6th month of the relationship, Layla had begun editing herself before Evan could compare her. She chose quieter restaurants because Claire apparently enjoyed casual places. She stopped mentioning when late messages interrupted their time together. She hesitated before expressing disappointment, asking herself whether Claire would have handled the situation differently. Evan had created a woman inside Layla's mind who was always more accommodating, more relaxed, more attractive, and less demanding. The real Claire no longer mattered. The imagined Claire had become the standard Layla was expected to fail. The changes did not make the relationship calmer. They only caused Evan to move the standard. When Layla remained quiet about Claire's late-night messages, Evan told her she seemed emotionally distant. When she made an effort to join him and his coworkers, he said Claire thought Layla was monitoring him. When she stayed home, he said Claire had predicted she would not make the effort. There was no correct response because correctness had never been the point. One evening, Layla and Evan attended a small birthday dinner for his friend Marcus. Claire was there with several coworkers. During the meal, Evan praised a proposal Claire had prepared and said the company would fall apart without her. Then he looked toward Layla. "Claire works almost as hard as you do." The table became quiet. Claire stared down at her plate. Layla smiled politely and changed the subject. On the drive home, Evan said, "Thank you for not making tonight awkward." Layla turned toward him. "What did you think I was going to do?" "I never know lately." "I barely spoke." "That was probably best." Something in Layla hardened. "You create a problem and then congratulate me for not reacting to it." Evan gripped the steering wheel. "I gave Claire a professional compliment. And added me to it. Because I was complimenting you too. You weren't. See, this is what I mean. You look for disrespect. And you keep giving me reasons to find it." The car became silent. When they reached Layla's building, Evan did not unlock her door immediately. "I think you should talk to someone." Layla looked at him. "About what?" "Your insecurity." The word hurt because it touched an old wound. Layla had spent years becoming comfortable with herself, after growing up in a family where affection was often tied to achievement. She had worked hard to stop measuring herself against other women. Evan knew that history because she had trusted him with it. Now he used it to explain why his behavior affected her. "I'm not insecure about Claire," Layla said. "I'm concerned about what you do with her name." He shook his head sadly. "You can't even see it." Layla got out of the car. Upstairs, she stood in her darkened living room and wondered whether she truly could not see herself clearly. 3 days later, Layla met her older cousin Simone for lunch. Simone did not tell Layla to leave Evan. She did not call him a narcissist or declare that Claire was secretly involved with him. She listened. That was what Layla needed most. She explained the comparisons, the messages, the way Evan quoted Claire during disagreements, and the way every attempt to discuss the pattern became evidence that Layla was jealous. When Layla finished, Simone asked one question. "Do you feel jealous when other women are around him?" Layla considered it. "No." "Do you feel jealous when he talks to female friends?" "No. He has other female friends." "Then when do you feel it?" Layla looked down at her hands. "After he compares me to her, or tells me what she thinks about me, or brings her up after I set a boundary." Simone nodded. "Then maybe jealousy isn't where the story begins." The sentence stayed with Layla. That evening, she opened a notebook and began documenting the moments when Claire appeared in their conversations. She did not record them to build a case against Evan. She recorded them because she no longer trusted the sequence of events after arguments. Evan had a way of beginning with what he had done and ending with who Layla supposedly was. She wrote down the original subject of each disagreement. He canceled dinner without calling. Claire understood that his job came first. Layla was jealous. He answered Claire's call during Layla's birthday dinner. Claire was dealing with a work emergency. Layla was selfish and jealous. He told Claire private details about their disagreement. Claire was simply giving advice. Layla was territorial and jealous. He compared their clothing at a party. It was only a compliment. Layla was too sensitive and jealous. For the first time, Layla saw the structure. Her jealousy was not the cause of the conflict. It was the conclusion Evan applied after creating it. She searched for language that might explain what she was experiencing. She read about emotional affairs, workplace boundaries, gaslighting, and comparison in relationships. Some of it fit, much of it did not. Then she found the word triangulation. She read the definition twice. Triangulation was a form of manipulation, in which someone introduced a third person into a relationship dynamic to create rivalry, insecurity, confusion, or dependence. The third person could be a romantic interest, a friend, an ex-partner, a family member, a co-worker, or even an imagined admirer. The purpose was not always to pursue the third person. Sometimes the purpose was to destabilize the target. Layla sat back from the screen. The third person did not have to be part of the plan. Claire might not even know how she was being used. The realization released something inside Layla. She did not need to prove that Evan was having an affair. She did not need evidence that Claire wanted him. She did not need to compete with another woman. The harm existed in Evan's repeated decision to use another person's name, attention, and supposed opinion to weaken Layla's confidence and avoid accountability. Triangulation is a form of psychological manipulation in which someone brings a third person, real, exaggerated, or sometimes entirely imagined, into a relationship to create insecurity, competition, or confusion. It can sound like constant comparisons. "My ex never complained about that. My coworker understands me better. Everyone agrees you're too sensitive." It can also involve sharing private relationship details with someone else, bringing that person's judgment back into the relationship, and then accusing the targeted partner of jealousy when she objects. The third person may be participating knowingly, or, like Claire, she may also be receiving a distorted version of events. Triangulation targets a person's thinking and perception. It teaches her to stop evaluating the harmful behavior and begin evaluating herself. Instead of asking, "Why does he keep creating insecurity?" she begins asking, "Why am I so insecure?" That reversal protects the pattern. Dear hearts, recognition does not always arrive as a dramatic discovery. Sometimes it arrives when a woman writes down what happened in the order it happened and realizes she has been carrying blame that was placed on her deliberately. If you have ever been made to compete for emotional safety, you are not alone. Subscribe and become part of the Velvet Circle. Layla did not contact Claire immediately. She spent another week observing. During that week, Evan mentioned that Claire thought Layla was controlling because she had asked him to turn off his phone during dinner. Later, he told Layla that Claire was considering transferring to another department because the office had become too complicated. "What does that have to do with me?" Layla asked. Evan shrugged. "You made her uncomfortable at the picnic. 6 weeks had passed since the picnic." Layla remembered Claire's discomfort, but she no longer assumed it had been caused by her. The following afternoon, Layla sent Claire a brief message. "I would like to ask you something about what Evan has told each of us. I'm not contacting you to confront you, and I'm not asking about your personal relationship with him. I believe we may have been given different versions of the same conversations. You do not owe me a response." Claire replied 2 hours later. They met the next Saturday. Claire arrived carrying an expression Layla recognized immediately. The careful uncertainty of a woman who expected to be blamed for something she did not fully understand. "I need to say this first," Claire began. "I'm not involved with Evan. I believe you." Claire looked surprised. "I'm not here to ask whether you are." Relief moved across her face, followed by embarrassment. "I should have set better boundaries. He talks about you a lot." "What does he say?" Claire hesitated. "That you struggle with trust because of past relationships. That you monitor his friendships with women. That you become upset when he spends time with coworkers." Layla nodded slowly. "He told me you believed I was controlling. I never used that word." "What did you say?" "He asked whether I thought it was healthy for a partner to expect updates throughout the day. I said it depended on the circumstances. He told me you wanted him to check in every hour. I asked him to tell me if he would be several hours late." Claire closed her eyes. "He told me you criticize the way I dress. I have never discussed your clothes with him except when he compared them to mine." Claire stared at her. "He told me you said I was trying too hard to look young." Layla felt anger rise, but not toward Claire. "He told me you said I dress too formally because I need attention." The two women sat quietly. The triangle changed shape. For months, Evan had portrayed Layla and Claire to one another as women quietly judging, resenting, and competing with each other. Then he had carried fragments of their supposed opinions back and forth, positioning himself at the center of a conflict neither woman had chosen. Claire's eyes filled with tears. "I gave him advice about you." "You were advising him about a version of me that didn't exist. I should have spoken to you. You didn't know me." Claire wiped beneath one eye. "He does this with our manager too. He tells me the manager thinks I'm emotional. Then he tells the manager I'm upset with him. I thought he was trying to help us communicate." Layla felt the final piece settle into place. Claire was not the source of the pattern. She was another point inside it. "I'm leaving him," Layla said. Claire looked at her. "Does he know?" "Not yet." Layla and Evan did not live together, which made leaving logistically simple but emotionally complicated. She had clothes at his apartment, a key to his building, and a future she had already begun imagining. She had pictured holidays together. She had considered whether his neighborhood might be a good place to buy a home. She had allowed herself to believe that the warmth of the beginning represented his truest self, and the confusion that followed was something they could solve. Now she understood that the beginning and the confusion were not separate. The early praise had established the qualities Evan would later force her to defend. He had admired her independence before accusing her of neediness. He had praised her communication before criticizing her tone. He had celebrated her confidence before repeatedly measuring her against another woman. Layla collected her belongings while Evan was at work. She photographed the items she returned, placed his key in an envelope, and changed the access code to her apartment building. She told Simone when the conversation would occur and arranged for her to call 30 minutes afterward. Preparation was not cowardice, it was agency. Layla knew Evan had never threatened her physically. She also knew that psychological manipulation could intensify when control was challenged. She did not owe him privacy, spontaneity, or unlimited access simply because he had not used violence. She chose to meet him in a quiet public courtyard beside a coffee shop. Before she left home, Layla read the notes she had written for herself. I am not going to debate Claire. I am not going to prove my emotional state. I am going to name the behavior. I am going to state my decision. I am not asking permission to leave. Evan arrived smiling. You sounded serious. I am. He sat across from her and reached for her hand. Layla moved it gently back into her lap. I understand what has been happening between us. His smile faded. What does that mean? You repeatedly bring Claire into our disagreements. You compare me to her, tell me what she supposedly thinks about me, share distorted versions of our private conversations with her, and then call me jealous when I object. Evan stared at her. You contacted Claire. It was not a question. Yes. His face changed immediately. I cannot believe you would involve someone from my job in your insecurity. She was already involved because you involved her. You crossed a serious boundary. You told her I demanded hourly updates from you. You told me she called me controlling. Neither statement was true. She's covering herself. No, you don't know her. Neither do you, apparently, because you also told her I criticized her appearance. Evan leaned back. For a brief moment, he appeared caught off guard. Then the familiar sadness entered his face. I did everything I could to make you feel secure. Layla recognized the shift. The conversation was moving away from his actions and toward her supposed deficiency. I am not discussing whether I felt secure. Of course not, because then you would have to admit, I am discussing what you did. You went behind my back. I compared the versions of events you gave us. You and Claire are both twisting things because neither one of you wants to take responsibility. Layla almost smiled. Even now, he was trying to position the two women against each other while remaining the misunderstood person between them. I'm ending the relationship. Evan went silent. Layla placed the envelope containing his key on the table. I removed my belongings from your apartment. I need you to return the key to mine. Evan stared at the envelope as though it were a threat. You're leaving because I have a female friend? No, because that's what this is. I'm leaving because you created conflict, used another woman to undermine my perception, and blamed my character whenever I tried to address it. You found a word online and now you think you're a psychologist? I don't need a diagnosis for you. I only need clarity for myself. She would have explained that she was not dramatic, listed everything she had tolerated, or demanded to know why Claire's opinion mattered more than hers. Now the sentence confirmed her decision. Layla stood. You just did it again. Evan's face went blank. You used her name to punish me for setting a boundary. I was making a point. So am I. She picked up her bag. You weren't trying to reassure me that there was nothing between you and Claire. You were trying to make me feel that I could be replaced by someone easier to control. That is not what happened. It is what I experienced, and I no longer need you to agree. Evan's voice lowered. You're going to regret destroying this over jealousy. Layla looked at him for the last time. I wasn't jealous of Claire. I was responding to what you kept doing with her name. Then she walked away. Evan began messaging before Layla reached home. First came anger. You had no right to contact someone from my workplace. Then disbelief. I can't believe you threw away 8 months because of your insecurity. Then tenderness. I know you're scared. We can work through this. Then comparison. Claire thinks this has gone too far. Layla stared at the final message. She took a screenshot and blocked his number. The next morning he emailed. He said Claire had manipulated the conversation because she wanted to protect her job. He claimed Layla had humiliated him professionally. He reminded her of every generous thing he had done during the relationship and described her departure as cold, impulsive, and cruel. He did not apologize. He did not acknowledge lying to either woman. He did not ask how his comparisons had affected her. Every message demanded that Layla reconsider herself instead of evaluating him. She created a folder and saved the emails without responding. Claire contacted her once. He says, you misunderstood everything and that I turned you against him. I told him not to discuss you with me again. I'm documenting what has happened at work. Thank you for speaking to me directly. Layla replied, thank you for telling me the truth. Please take care of yourself. Then she stepped out of the triangle. She did not continue comparing notes with Claire. She did not investigate Evan's workplace behavior. She did not make herself responsible for proving what he had done to everyone who knew him. Understanding the pattern did not require Layla to remain attached to it. In the first weeks after leaving, Layla sometimes missed Evan. She missed the version of him who remembered her presentations and planned thoughtful evenings. She missed the early conversations, the laughter, and the future she had begun building in her mind. Missing those moments did not mean she had made the wrong decision. It meant the relationship had contained experiences she valued alongside a pattern she could no longer accept. Layla learned not to turn grief into evidence against herself. She also noticed how quiet her mind became. She no longer rehearsed conversations before speaking. She no longer watched a man's expression to determine whether another woman's name was about to become a test. She no longer asked herself how a cooler, calmer, less demanding woman might respond. One Saturday evening, Simone invited her to a small gathering. While getting dressed, Layla chose the green dress Evan had once compared to Claire's casual style. She looked at herself in the mirror. For months, she had believed she was competing with another woman. Now she understood that Claire had never been the opponent. The real struggle had been between Layla's perception and the story Evan kept asking her to believe. Dear hearts, leaving does not always happen because every question has been answered. Sometimes a woman leaves because she finally understands the question she should have been asking. Not, how can I prove I'm not jealous, but why must I keep defending myself against insecurity someone else repeatedly creates? Several months later, Layla attended a professional conference hosted at a downtown hotel. During a break between sessions, she overheard two women speaking near the coffee table. One of them described a boyfriend who constantly compared her to his ex-wife. According to him, the ex-wife was more adventurous, more affectionate, less emotional, and better at understanding his work. Whenever the woman objected, he accused her of being obsessed with the past. I know I sound jealous, she said quietly. Layla did not interrupt or offer unsolicited advice, but the sentence reminded her of the woman she had been, the woman trying to solve a problem that had been intentionally mislabeled. Later, as Layla returned to the conference room, she thought about how easily an accusation could become an identity. Jealous, difficult, insecure, controlling, too sensitive. Once a woman accepted the label, she might spend months or years proving she was not the problem, while the harmful behavior continued without examination. Layla had not left because she learned how to stop feeling. She left because she learned to trust what her feelings were responding to. She had not been jealous of Claire. She had been confused by contradictions. She had been hurt by comparisons. She had been destabilized by private conversations carried outside the relationship and returned as judgments against her. She had been placed inside a competition she never agreed to enter. She had been told that her response to manipulation was proof that the manipulation did not exist. Once Layla recognized that, she stopped trying to become the woman Evan claimed would be easier to love. She became unavailable for the pattern instead. Psychological abuse does not always look like a person commanding someone else what to do. Sometimes it looks like a person quietly controlling what she believes about herself. Evan did not need to forbid Layla from speaking. He only needed to make her question the meaning of her own words. He did not need to openly choose Claire. He only needed to make Layla feel she was always being measured against her. He did not need to prove that another woman could replace her. He only needed to keep the possibility present enough that Layla would wake harder, tolerate more, and ask for less. But Layla finally understood something Evan had never intended her to learn. Healthy love does not require a woman to defeat another woman for the right to feel emotionally safe. It does not use comparisons to correct her. It does not recruit outsiders to invalidate her boundaries. It does not create insecurity and then punish her for feeling it. Layla understood, she confronted, and she left. Not because she was jealous. Because she was no longer confused. Her story is fictional. The pattern is real. Dear hearts, thank you for spending this time with us in the Velvet Circle. If you haven't already, subscribe and become part of the family. Each one of you matters. See you in the next story. One final question. Did you see yourself or someone you care about in this story? Don't stay quiet. Tell someone. Ask for help.
Please don't forget to like this video, share with your friends, and leave a comment below. Subscribe, join the family, and let us know where you are watching and listening from. The lessons you learned, and your thoughts on how we can continue improving to give you the very best. Thank you.